So next up, we have a presentation from Challenger Gold with the ticker code CEL, a company focused on the exploration and development of its South American gold and copper projects. I'll hand you over to Managing Director and CEO, Kris Knauer. Good afternoon, Kris.
Good afternoon, Jane, and thanks for having us. And everyone, thanks for giving up your time. We might go straight to slide 3, thanks, which is the snapshot slide. Thanks. So look, Challenger, South American gold-focused company, 2 projects, Hualilan Gold Project in San Juan, Argentina, recently voted the #1 mining jurisdiction in Argentina. Definitely the lead. 2.8 million ounce resource, open in all directions. It's already got critical mass and will be a mine. In Ecuador, we sit next to a 17 million ounce ore body, and we've got a 4.5 million ounce resource from 2.5 of the sort of 7 mineralized anomalies we've got there. Ticker code CEL, we've done 250,000 meters of drilling to date. Market cap $137 million. So, I'll have a little tear when I talk about how we're trading at $19 an ounce. And that's partially due to a hangover. We raised $10 million about 3 weeks ago at 12 cents a share. We're currently working through people who took that stock at 12 cents, selling at 11 cents. But most importantly, we've got $13 million cash in the bank, more than a 12-month runway, and it lets us get through some really significant value-adding milestones in the next 9 months, which, look, for an incoming shareholder, there's an opportunity here. In terms of the management team, look, I'm an exploration geologist, got out into the market as an analyst. Started a company called Citadel Resources. 7 years later, we were taken over after getting the project through bankable and almost into production. My CFO, Scott Funston, did a similar thing with Avanco Resources in Brazil. Probably the key hire is there in purple, Mike Zivic. Mike's an Australian mining engineer. We got Mike on board about 2 months ago. Up until that time, Mike was running Barrick's Velarado gold mine in San Juan in Argentina, which is a 400,000 ounce a year gold mine. He was the youngest and longest serving general manager for that mine. He used to drive past us, but really Mike gives us that muscle as we go forward to actually get the project into production and then generate cash flow and dividends for shareholders. Top shareholders, BlackRock, largest resource fund in the world, owned 13.5%. They came along pro rata in that last placement. Queen's Road Capital, which is a Canadian long-only fund, put in $15 million via a note almost 12 months ago. They will go again at some point in time, so they're our backstop. Key difference between us and other companies is board and management have 20% of the company. Sergio, our sort of Argentinian director, who was the project owner, took all shares. I put the first couple of $1 million in to get the company listed. My chairman put a few $1 million in. So our interests are aligned with shareholders. We're not protecting big salaries. We're looking for a value-creating event, which, at the moment, we're going to focus on getting the project into production. That's the best way to add value. So what are the milestones you get? So most importantly, later this month, you get a scoping study. First time we've been able to wrap some economics around Hualilan, and the market does not understand it. I hear things from institutions, oh, look, that high grade underground, it doesn't hang together, it's not going to work, the capex is too high. I think just wait and see the results of the scoping study and all of those questions go away. We're also drilling some regional targets. We've got 30 kilometres of strike, current resources on 3 kilometres of that. So, that's a massive opportunity for us. And then first quarter next year, we'll deliver a pre-feasibility study. Why is that important? Because if the market is like it is now, which is terrible, it lets us draw down royalty funding. So we've got the option of non-dilutive funding. Just a bit about the geology. So that line of hills in the center of page is actually a fault that controls the mineralization. You've had this intrusive or the big engine that created Hualilan come up along that fault. Hot fluids and minerals in those fluids above it. The green is the high grade. You've dropped out green mineralization where you've got a series of faults, and that high grade wraps around the yellow, which is the lower grade mineralization. Key features, we've got high grade mineralization 2 kilometres at the bottom of the page, mineralization another 600 meters north of the page. That line of hills you can see there at the top is prospective. So Hualilan's still open in all directions and will get much bigger. And just the resource. So the resource has a high-grade core in there of 1.6 million ounces at 5 grams. That's what the scoping study's focused on, and that resource is still open. We've grown that resource from 2.1 to 2.8 million ounces. You can see some of those intercepts at the bottom, 42 meters at 6 that the resource is open beyond. It will get bigger if we keep drilling it, but right now the best way to add value for shareholders is to move towards production. And this is just a heat map of that resource. Key features here are red and pink are high grade. You've got red and pink near surface where I've circled it in red. That actually de-risks it. So we can start with with an open pit, getting high grade material through. We've got almost 1.5 million tonnes there at 3.5 grams at surface coming out in the first year and a half. That effectively pays all the capex back in the first 12 to 18 months. And then if you look deeper, the high grade red and pink blobs are actually in a northern and a southern area, which is well placed for underground mining. And then of note is that deepest hole ended in 4 meters at 600 meters below the resource. We've got mineralization 600 meters below the resource. It will get bigger as we keep drilling it. And this is just showing you what we're looking at in the current scoping study. The keys for this scoping study are it's got to be something we can deliver in the current climate where raising money is difficult. It's got to be low capex. It's got to produce at least 100,000 ounces a year. It's got to be low cost and high cash flow. So how do we do that? We have a small open pit starter that de-risks it, and then we go straight underground. And I think that scoping study should tick all of those boxes, and hopefully that drives a re-rate for us. I think if we try to turn this into a $500 million project we can't fund, then the market would hate it. But this scoping study will be aimed on that high-grade core. And I'm just showing you our regional ground position. So everything in orange is us. Blue is Newmont, and you can see there's some vacant blocks there that we're looking at the moment. We've also bought the ground around us, the 20,000 hectares. Why have we done this? It just takes away a couple of layers of red tape as we go into production. And why have we got this 560 square kilometre package? You simply don't find 2 or 3 million ounce ore bodies by themselves. And I'll talk to that in the next slide. Thanks. So this is a zoomed in version. So on the left, the yellow with the black outline, that's the current 2.8 million ounce resource. You can see the pink there is the intrusive underlying at the engine, if you say, for the mineralization. You can see there's almost a 1-for-1 correlation. Now those red dots are where we've got high grade mineralization at surface, so we will extend the resource. And then on the right is the zoomed out version, which I'll talk to on the next slide. So what we're seeing here is the pink are those same intrusives. You can see where the current resource is. The yellow is where you've got this intrusive unit basically coming into the sediments. So it's the same structural stratigraphy as created Hualilan. And there's 30 kilometres of that unit, and we've got 3 million ounces on 3 kilometres. We've just started a regional exploration program. We're 15-20% into it. Key highlights there, 2 kilometres north, we've got 26.9 gram material at surface. That's actually a series of old workings that extend from the northern boundary of the resource another 2 kilometres. So we know the mineralisation keeps going north. We're just mapping it now so we can drill some better targeted holes up there. And then 10 kilometres at an area we call El Penon, we've actually got better than 50 gram material at surface. When you go and pan that gold, it's angular, which means it hasn't travelled far. That system up there, the high-grade gold sits around a 2 kilometre in diameter circular feature that's anomalous in copper and gold. We think that's potentially a copper molybdenum porphyry with the high-grade mineralisation around the edge. Next step there is to do some magnetics to image the intrusives and better target some holes. But look, exciting. There'll be another Hualilan there somewhere, and I think that's the best way to actually add value. We get one hole that's going 20 metres at 2 grams, and we probably add $100 million to our market cap overnight. So what you're seeing on the right there is gold in soil anomaly map. Cangrejos, which is a 17 million ounce gold deposit, is in that white box adjoining us. They drilled a large gold in soil anomaly. We've got 15 of these gold in soil anomalies. We've drilled 14 of them. 7 have got more than 500 metre intersections. And then that black box there that captures 2.5 of those anomalies, we've just announced a 4.5 million ounce resource at a little bit over 0.5 gram. Importantly, that's got a high grade core. There's 1 million ounces at 1.2 in there. And you can see some of those drill results from the other anomalies there that aren't in the resource. 800 metres at 0.5 gram, 773 metres at 0.4, including 400 metres at 0.6 of a gram. They speak to themselves. And then the other key feature is Cangrejos, which is next door. We think it's the other half of the system. Recently done a $300 million stream financing deal with Wheaton Precious Metals. So Ecuador is open for business, and you can finance Ecuador projects. This is showing you the current resource. Purple is high grade. You can see there the drilling was limited by the topography. We couldn't get a rig up some of those steep slopes. What we're doing now, where the red is at surface, is a series of surface channel samples. We'll cut the rocks out in a long channel, treat it exactly the same way as a drill core. And what that should let us do is get that high grade component more than 100 meters away from the hole up towards surface. It could significantly add to this high grade component, which is important. And then this is just to the future exploration potential. These are two anomalies at the north of our concession. We haven't done enough drilling to get a resource. The key there is, before we put a drill hole in, we came out with and announced to the market 4 to 6 million ounce exploration targets on both of those two anomalies. And the drill results you can see there on the left, 774 metres at 0.4, 528 metres at 0.5 to the end of the hole, have done nothing but validate those exploration targets. So for a little bit of drilling, we can more than double the current Ecuador resource. So just to wrap up, so where are we now? We're trading at the same share price we were in the middle of the GFC when we'd done half a dozen drill holes. We've got 7.2 million ounces of resources, so we're ridiculously cheap. How do we get re-rated? Scoping study, which is sometime this month, is the key. I think that's the first demonstration of the economic value of Hualilan, and the market generally values a company at 50% of the cash flows of that project at our stage. We'll certainly have a bigger cash flow than I think the market gives us credit for. An updated resource in Ecuador that captures more of the high grade, and then a pre-feasibility study first quarter next year, which was a big re-rating event for companies like De Grey and Bellevue Gold. And the importance of that is, if the market's terrible, it lets us access royalty non-dilutive funding as well. That's all I'm going to talk to. I'm happy to take some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kris, for the great presentation. Let me jump into it. So from the expansion drilling at Hualilan, are you targeting a mineral resource upgrade? And if so, when can the investment community expect this?
Look, we're not really. So the exploration drilling is going to focus on regional exploration potential. I think if we take Hualilan from 2.8 million ounces to 3.5 million ounces, I don't think we get a lot more value. And look, don't get me wrong, we'll easily take it to 3.5 million ounces. But right now, we've got enough money for the next 12 months. We've got money there to drill some of these regional targets. I think shareholders get a far better bang for their buck if we drill some of these regional targets and find a second Hualilan, because I think if we find a second Hualilan, the market will value us as if we've got 6 million ounces, not the 1 million ounces at Hualilan they're valuing us for now versus the 3 we've got.
Thanks, Kris. And you covered this in the presentation, but the maiden resource for Ecuador has been out now. So what's the next steps for it? Is there going to be more drilling? And perhaps maybe if you talk to that.
Yeah, so look, in the current climate, we're not going to get value for that Ecuador resource. So what we're going to do is softly spend the money on advancing Argentina. There will be that program of surface sampling, which should get a lot more of the high grade into the resource. We'll finish that. There will be an upgraded resource. We've got 5 more holes that weren't in that resource, and then we'll reevaluate what we do with Ecuador. I think in the current climate, we don't want to blow the cash balance out quickly. We want to make sure that, we meet our milestones and have more than a 12-month runway and are not looking to do another cap raise.
Wonderful. Well, Kris, thank you for the great presentation. Again, if we've missed any questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. So thank you.